Yay, we're live. Welcome to the Writing Gals. We are four sweet romance authors staying up late talking about writing. And tonight we're going to talk about writing blurbs. The favorite of all the things that we get to write is the blurb. So we're excited to talk about that. But first, we're going to talk about where we are at right now. So you get to find all the lovely things we are all doing. So let's start with Victorine.
Yay, I'm first. All right. Well, I am trying to write my next short. I think it's like a novella, like 30,000 words. I'm trying to write it. I've been planning other things instead, but it's exciting what I've been planning because the Writing Gals are going to have their very own writing retreat next year. So I'm in the midst of planning that. It'll be in April. So we're planning it up against a conference with the Nebraska Writers Guild. So it'll be April 11th will be the writing retreat with the Writing Gals. And then the 12th and 13th, the Writing Gals will all be teaching classes at the Nebraska Writers Guild conference in Omaha, Nebraska. And so we're getting all the details worked out on that. And it will be up on the Writing Gals website, hopefully within the next couple of days. So super excited about that. So I haven't been doing a lot of writing because I've been working on that. But we're so excited to have this writing retreat with all of you guys.
Yay. It's going to be so fun. We're going to have like a whole day where you get to just hang out with us and write with us and get to know us. It's going to be really fun. I don't know why, because we're not that exciting, but hopefully it convinces you to come out. And then oh, well, I'm not that exciting.
And it'll just be cool to meet you guys too, because we've seen you online and we're like, oh, it'd be awesome to meet everyone. So
yeah, you get to see how short or tall or pudgy we all really are.
Oh no.
We do a good job of like hiding it all. You just see our lovely faces. So anyways, it's going to be exciting. So be planning on coming to that in April of next year. And Victorine is also very behind on her covers. So I keep anxiously awaiting my new Christmas novellas to come out, covers to come, because that always helps. But I'm slowly nudging her. Hey, Victorine, where's my cover? Where's my cover? So she's going to be awesome. We're excited. All right, Judy, why don't you tell us what you're up to?
Okay, so I am about 56,000 words into my second chance with it, which is the book I've been working on for forever. But I'm really excited about where I got to today because I've been like dying to write this next scene ever since I outlined it, and I hope that I can do a good job of it because I've been waiting for it for so long, so it better end up good. But yeah, I'm doing that, and then I'm also getting like the cover ready for my Christmas novella that I'm doing and hopefully being able to write in time. So yeah, that's what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, super, super exciting. And Judy likes to bite off a lot when she writes a book. So every book she writes, she's got more like social issues and stuff inside of them. And we're like,
yeah,
I
make them kind of complicated. So that's why they're going to be great.
Yeah. Okay. And Michelle, what are you doing?
Can't find the unmute button. Okay. So I just published my Regency novella, The Unwanted Suitor, and it's doing really well, I think. Great, better launch than my last one, so that's fun. And I am 3 weeks out from launching my Saved by the Rockstar, and it is, I think, finally moving the direction that I want it to. I have had some rough edits that I've been doing lately, but I am kicking it in gear and looking like I'm good to get that one out. And then I'm going to finish my first full-length Regency called To Love a Gentleman, and then I'm going to get started on Christmas because Christmas is coming close, and we all have several projects that we're trying to get done by then. So it's time. It's going to be weird because my family is going on vacation to the beach in October, and that's when I'm going to be writing Christmas. So that should be interesting. It's like, I need snow and pine trees. And
just like take the sand and like sprinkle it over you. Be like, this is my snow.
My kids will do that anyway, so I'll just pretend.
That's awesome. We love
That's it.
Christmas time. It's finally in Minnesota. I don't know if it's there too, but it's finally starting to feel a little bit like crisp air. It's a little cooler.
Okay, we got 80s in Arkansas, so that's pretty
Yeah.
decent for here.
Yeah, no, it was actually like I could wear a sweatshirt out here and not feel like I'm roasting. So I'm like, this weather right now is why I live in Minnesota, because from now until the end of the year it's amazing, and then the first 2/3 is just awful, and then you survive until this time of year. So, well, super exciting. We're excited for you. And for me, I just finished rule number 3. You can't kiss your best friend. So I am editing it right now and then sending it off to beta readers, hoping to release it end of next week. And just to kind of bump up all my YA books again. Hopefully that gives me more visibility. And to also bank on the awesome ranks that they have. Hopefully it'll just kind of carry through to the rest of the series. And then I will start Marrying a Spy, which is the 5th book of my marriage series. And then I have 2 Christmas novellas planned. So I'm hoping to get those all done by the end of November so I can release my Christmas books and do awesome, because Michelle has paved the way for us for Christmas books, because her book last year did amazing during Christmas time. So I'm really excited to have those. My one YA one, it'll be rule number 4. You can't misinterpret a mistletoe kiss. And then the other one will be Second Chance Mistletoe Kisses. So they'll both be about mistletoe. So I'm kind of excited to write them and to get the covers for them. So
mine's gonna be a part of my mistletoe series, my Sawdust and Mistletoe, and I haven't figured out a series name, but I'm like, we all need to just like deck our houses with mistletoe now, because like, Judy's got a mistletoe title too, right?
Yeah, mine's My Mistletoe Mix-Up.
Yep.
yeah, it's going to be awesome. I'm super excited. Now Victorine, you have to write a Christmas book, apparently.
With mistletoe.
I totally have to. Yeah.
It's a rule. When all 3 of us are writing something, then the 4th one just has to come in. It's just a rule. Okay, so let's talk about blurbs. From Tierra Inserto, she asked, are there different rules for blurbs for the different romance genres? For example, Regency versus Western versus contemporary. Or do you follow the same formula? Does anyone want to jump in, Victorine, since you're unmuted?
Oh, golly. I really only write contemporary, but I haven't seen a huge difference in the way that the blurbs are written between the romance genres, but I do in like between romance versus science fiction or fantasy or some of like in the bigger genre realm. So I would say the most important thing is to just go read a bunch of blurbs in whatever you're writing and get the feel for the ones that are selling really well in the indie market and what are they doing for their formula. You know, are they mostly 3 paragraphs, or is it mostly 2? You know, are they shorter or longer? Or for romance, it's pretty much write a paragraph about the girl, write a paragraph about the guy, and then something to sum it up. So that's pretty normal for romance. And I've seen that across all romance genres.
What about you, Michelle? Since you write in a bunch of different, what do you think?
Yeah, so one of the differences that I've noticed is that, for example, in young adult, they tend to have a lot more romances written in first person, and that's reflected in the blurbs a lot. So I think that that's something to consider, which point of view your actual blurb is going to be written in. And in historical, a lot of the books are not, they tend to have a lot more subplots in them than just a contemporary romance does. And so a lot of times those subplots need to be, they're important enough to the story that they do need to be referenced a little bit in the blurb. A lot of historical romances that stick really tight to the romance will have the same format as any other romance. But if there's a villain that's messing things up, that's the one causing all of the big conflict, then that villain needs to be referred to, which doesn't happen in contemporary romance very often. So those are some of the differences that I've seen. But generally, one other thing is most people write romance in dual point of view between the boy and the girl. And so you need to have it. Usually you try to have, you know, something about each point of view. But if you're writing from one point of view, obviously, then that would change the format of your blurb in that way, because you would probably just focus on everything from your point of view character and their problems and desires and that sort of thing. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and like something that helped me a lot when I was first trying to figure out how to write a blurb, because they're just so I can write a book just fine, which is like 75,000 words, but a blurb that's like 100 words, it's like I hate it so much. It's so hard. So some things that helped me was to just remember like the 4 basic elements that are in a novel will also need to be in your blurb, like especially if it's not romance. This helped me with those. And so you need to make sure that you have your character in there, like so that people know who the story is about and what makes this person like worthy of their own story. And then you want to have the conflict in there. So what goes wrong, what disrupts your character's, normal life, and what the story is basically going to be about. And then the choice is another important part. You need to show what choice the character faces when the conflict shows up. And then the consequence is another important thing. So that's like the or else, like what your character has to make a choice, or else these bad things are going to happen. And then just what specific consequence your character is trying to stop with their choice. And so that's just how you make the consequences are how you make your reader care about the conflict.
Yeah.
So
like naming the stakes is important, I think, in the blurb. So they know if this doesn't happen, what is the possibility that could be the downfall of what would keep them from being together or the war from being won. I think when they're talking about YA, I agree, studying blurbs of what people have done. I do believe that you could do a third person blurb for a first person book, but you can't necessarily go the other way around. I think that would really throw people off if you did a first person blurb for a third person book. And I think it's because we're okay with being sold, feeling like we're being sold by a narrator. So like if they say like my YA book is told first person. So if I was talking about the Destiny did this, this, and this, that it is okay. But I think you would jar your reader from going first person, bam, into third person. So be careful in trying to switch that up. I've
actually seen that done, and
did it bother you?
Really, yeah, it did bother me.
Yeah.
Because you think you know what voice you're getting into, and then it's not.
Right. But you don't feel that way if you read a third person blurb for a first person book. And I think it's because, we hear like the movie preview is always told through a third person, even if, so-and-so did this and that. So when I was looking for my urban fantasy books, I read both. So I've tried both out, and you can do that as well. One of those things, you can run an ad and see which one's selling your book more, if it's a first person or a third person blurb for your book. So you can try that out. And what I do for my formula is like what other people have talked about. I do like the first paragraph is from the girl, second paragraph from the boy, and then I always do a third paragraph about when they come together. So when I think of it, my blurb, my first paragraph is basically all of the things that have led up to this moment where the meet cute is going to happen. It's normally the first chapter of my book. So what in her past has made her hate men and not or just distrust love, and she's given up on it and she's not doing anything else, but then she meets this guy. And then it's the same for the second paragraph, where he is like having this horrible time, where he's done with relationships too. Then he meets the girl. And then the third paragraph is like, but when certain things happen or exes return, they have to decide if they want to be together or not. And I always try and take Victorine's philosophy of don't end in a question, because it's an obvious answer. And that can be difficult too, to try and tweak it so you're not asking a question. Do you guys have anything else you want to add to that?
My biggest blurb writing secret for romance is stick the tropes in there, the ones that you've used in your book, because that to me sells the book. And a lot of times my trope is what is surrounding the conflict as well. And so if I can stick that trope in there and the conflict between the two, whatever's pulling them apart and whatever is pushing them together, then I feel like I have a really well-formed blurb.
Mm-hmm. That's perfect. Okay, so how many words should a blurb be? I would say probably no more than 3 paragraphs, and I would make those paragraphs probably about 4 to 5 sentences each. Anything more than that, and you're going to lose your reader. They're going to get bored. They're not going to want to read, and they're going to be like, this person is long-winded in their blurb. They're going to be long-winded in their book.
Yeah, I try to keep mine between like 100 and 150 words. And yeah, the shorter the better, because I know when I'm looking for a book and I like see this big, huge, long description, I'm like, oh, I don't really want to read that. So I'll just move on. So yeah. Yeah.
Well, and I think that indicates too, like people who like to put a lot of extra stuff at the end of their blurb, like to explain the book and what other books are like it. I wonder too if that turns off readers because they're not even going to get to that point to realize, oh, this isn't part of the blurb. To them, it's just going to look like this is one long blurb.
Yes, and formatting is important. Make sure it's really clear between your paragraphs in there. Go in and add an extra space or you know, do some HTML to have your tagline bold and then separate out some of the other stuff, because sometimes the formatting could just stick it all together in one big wall of text, and that can be a huge turnoff. Even though it may be written well, it can look bad, and so you can go in and tweak the formatting and make it look good.
Mm-hmm. And they do that. That happens when Amazon, when you upload your hard copy, I think they always mess that up. And I just never know enough to go do it. So much time. I only have so many minutes in the day, and I'd rather put it writing than making my blurb look nice. Go ahead, Michelle.
So I was going to say one of the things that when that turns me off of a blurb is when it's really scattered. You know what I mean? Like it's not telling me the things I want to hear, you know, and the things I want to hear is who is this about? Why should I care about them? And what kind of story am I getting into? You know, like Victoria was talking about the tropes. Like I want to know, hey, if this is about this trope that I love, then I'm buying this book. If it's about this trope, then maybe I, you know, might want to move along, kind of thing. But if the author doesn't know how to give me the information I want, then I'm like, how are they going to write a book? And it's 2 different skills, but you don't really understand that unless you're a writer. But it's important. It's an organizational thing to be able to present to the reader the right information in the right order and the right time. And I think a lot of times people just try and cram in things that aren't important in the blurb. You're not trying to tell them backstory. You're not trying to tell them about their personality traits or you know, like all this unimportant stuff. You actually want to give them as few details as possible. Just what you need to hook them. Just the bare minimum, because if you start telling them anything else, then you know you're gonna lose them pretty easily.
And I think when your blurb has kind of gone off the rails is if you have a ton of names in there. So I think a lot of people feel like, well, I have to name the sister in the book, or in the blurb. No, you don't. You can just say so-and-so's sister or his sister. Like you don't even have to go. I think one of them, his sister passed away. And so it was like a big part of why he was kind of distant. And so by part of what was leading him up to this moment. But I didn't name him, and I didn't name his mom. I just stuck to the 2 main characters, and that was it. Unless it's absolutely necessary that you name the other person, don't do it.
Yeah, in my Regency one that I just published, when I originally wrote the blurb, I had this whole sentence where he proposed and broke her heart, and I put this part where, according to her parents, she'd run away to live with an aunt that he'd never known, and da 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 da. And then I was like, this is important. They have to know why she ran away, or you know what he thought, you know. And then I was reading it back like 4 or 5 days later, luckily before I published it, and I was like, no one cares about that right now. No one cares. They just want to know she ran away. So I put she ran away and done. You know, and so I think it's one of those things that if you step back or even give it a few days, you can come back and read it and really see just those phrases that kind of like don't matter. You think they do, and they're important to your story, but they're not important as a selling device.
Exactly. So somebody was asking, can you give examples of bad blurbs? Because I think we talk about, oh, like, this is a great blurb. This is a great blurb. Do you guys have, I'm trying to look on my files because I always write my blurbs like in my Scrivener document. So I'm trying to find one, like an original blurb that I've started out with and said, hey guys, read this. Tell me what you think of it. And then I always end up tweaking. Do any of you guys have anything off the top that you have right open that we can take a look at and say why it's not a good one?
I don't have an example of one, but a long time ago when I first started publishing, I was involved on K-boards, and somebody posted the most brilliant post about talking about blurb writing. And he said a lot of authors, what they do is they don't want to tell too much of the story. And so they go in and they try and be mysterious in their blurb, and they don't say any, they say stuff, but they don't say anything. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
They say stuff like, Harry gets into sticky situations, and then something goes wrong and Harry has to get himself out of it. And you have no idea if are they talking about aliens coming down, or are they talking about, he fell in love with the wrong girl. What kind of book is this? So he wrote a fake blurb for Jurassic Park without mentioning the dinosaurs anywhere. And it was brilliant. And you read that fake blurb he wrote, and you have no idea they're talking about dinosaurs. And his whole point was, don't hide the dinosaurs in your book.
Mm-hmm.
When you're writing a blurb, make sure people know what this book is about, so they can see how, the genres that are in there, the tropes that they're using. Let those things come out. Otherwise, you're hiding your dinosaur, and nobody wants to see Jurassic Park without dinosaurs.
Right. Like, don't name the killer, obviously, but you want to talk about everything that leads up to the moment that the killer gets revealed. So all of those, like, everyone's like, well, I'm going to give it away, but no, that is going to entice your reader, because your reader is answering a question. You want to pose a question to your reader that the only way they can answer it is by reading your book. So that's a lot of times where you're like, they have to decide if they can forgive each other to move on. So so now I want to read the book. Now I know everything that's leading up to it. Now I want to know if that's going to happen or not. You don't want to have them being like, I have no idea what that book is about, and I'm more confused than I was like just looking at your cover. So yeah, I love that. I would really love to see that one about Jurassic Park without talking about dinosaurs.
I'll have to try and see if I can search through.
You have to find it so I can have it at my class.
Post.
I have to have it so I can use it at my class at Midwest conference, because I'm doing one about blurbs and taglines, and that would be perfect. Or just trying to write a blurb where you just don't talk about anything that's going on, or it's so obscure that you're like, well, that would be really fun. I'm going to try doing that.
Do it. Yes.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Well, and I think also, because we talk a lot about romance on here, because we are romance authors, but I hear that a really good example of a very complex story that has a great blurb is Game of Thrones. And because it's a very complex world, lots of different characters, lots of moving parts. So that instead of doing more specific characters, his world was his character. So he talked about the world in terms of enticing the reader than this specific character and this specific character. So, if you're more of a fantasy writer, a science fiction writer, you're going to get a lot more of those elements in there, trying to figure out, what do I add? What don't I add in? So looking and researching bigger world books and saying, okay, what do they talk about? And what are they leaving out? So yeah, we don't really have any examples of blurbs, and we try not to read people's blurbs because we don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. But we'll try and see if we can come up with some blurbs that would be an example of a bad blurb that we did ourselves. Judy, did you have something you want to add?
Oh, I just have examples of good ones, because we had Michelle post last week asking for our members of our group to post some of their blurbs, and we would choose some that we thought were great. So do you want me to read a couple of those now?
Sure.
Okay. So I picked two. There were a lot of really great ones, but since we don't want to be on here all all night long. I had to narrow it down. So the first one that I really liked was from Kristen Overholt. I hope I might be saying names wrong, sorry. But it's from her book, Loving an Outlaw. And so it says, 18-year-old Abigail Dodd has always dreamed of building a life out west. Her plans to join her older brother in Texas are put in jeopardy when he suddenly stops writing. Unsure whether he's dead or alive, Abigail leaves for the Wild West in search of the truth. Jake Morgan rides to the rescue when things go wrong on the long road to Sweet Creek, Texas. He vows to see Abigail safely to her destination before continuing on his own journey to California. When it becomes clear that her life is in danger, Jake decides to stay as long as it takes to make sure she's safe, even if it costs him his life. When Abigail learns of a dark secret from his past, she realizes that she may have to let go of the man she has come to love in order to save his life. So I got chills as I was reading that just barely too. I just really liked it. I liked how she shows us who the characters are, what their goal is, and what's at stake, and shows us that there is a love story there waiting to happen, and then gives us the question of, is it, what would happen at the end. So I really liked that one a lot.
That was awesome.
Yeah. And then Bridget Baker, she shared one from her young adult novel, Marked. And okay, so I'll just read it. All Ruby Bell, I hope I'm reading that right. All Ruby Bell wants for her 17th birthday is a good career path match and to kiss her best friend and longtime crush, Wesley Fairchild. Unfortunately, the simplicity of teenage wishes evaporated a decade ago when the Tercera virus nearly wiped out the human race. Transmitted through touch, the slightest contact is prohibited in the safe haven community of Port Gibson. Then a kiss is deadly. Oh, sorry. An innocent game of spin the bottle, a rite of passage for Port Gibson's teams, provides the opportunity Ruby's been waiting for. But when Wesley winds up marked, Ruby realizes her first kiss may also be her last. Ruby faces the viral clock to uncover long-buried secrets about her dead parents, and her once cloudy future becomes clear. She's the key to finding the cure, but is she willing to pay the price? So I really loved that, of course, first because I love the best friends to lovers type trope, and so she definitely highlighted that in there, and that got me really excited because that's my favorite. And then I just like it showed the story idea, which was cool and new, and I really loved that. And spin the bottle is just fun, but then also it just shows why she can't have what she wants, and so I just thought that was really good too.
So it's giving you enough of that world and that glimpse into it to whet your appetite, and then you go, okay, I want to know, because she didn't go into like the logistics of how all this stuff works, because I think that would turn off the reader, then give them it's like entice them, like give them that question that I need to answer. Okay, perfect, awesome. Well, great job, guys. You did awesome to be talked about on our podcast. So pat yourself on the back. You got blurb writing down. Now we're all going to send our blurbs to you. You can write them for us. So then someone else asked, what are the important points to hit? So what do we want to hit? We talked about what not to do. So let's talk about what you should do.
I think that just kind of goes down to what we were talking about before about having the character conflict, choice, and consequence. But Michelle was going to say something, so. Oh, no. Okay. Yeah, so I think we kind of went on that, but was there anything else?
No, I think that's good. Just keep, like with taglines, keep drilling down, keep trying again, and try to give as little with giving a lot at the same time. So, good luck with that.
I think it's important to remember to hook a reader. What a hook basically boils down to is a question. So you're planting a question in your reader's mind that they have to answer by reading the book. It's not a question in reality. You're not saying, will so-and-so make it through alive? Because the answer is yes. But you're planting that question of what is going to happen next? How will your character get out of this situation? And so if you can plant a hook in your blurb that will make your reader want to read, that's what that's the ultimate goal of your blurb.
Mhm. And we did. Oh, go ahead, Michelle. Did you want to say one more thing?
Well, in a minute, I wanted to talk about something that came up on our Facebook group page with the adjective descriptors for the characters. So I don't know when you guys want to talk about that, but I do.
I was just going to give an example of a first person blurb since we did 2 third persons, and not to toot my own horn, but I'm going to read my own since I know you guys can be brutal on it. And we can talk about it. So I think with first person, what I love most about it is you can get your character's voice to the reader off the bat. It's really harder to captivate the voice or capture the voice of your book if it's told in third person, but if you do first person, it's really good. So I'm going to read you my blurb for my rule number 1. You can't date the coach's daughter. And this was actually how I started out my first chapter. And I kept getting Victorine's like, I don't like that. It's just going over and it's like you're telling us and then you're showing us later on in the chapter. And I was like, no, I'm going to keep it because I really like it. And then I realized, I think this actually would be better as the blurb and then cutting it off until then. And then starting the story up again. So here's my blurb. There are 2 types of people in high school, the ones you can date and the ones you can't. Unfortunately for me, I'm the latter. Even though I'm around hot football players every afternoon, they're not allowed to date me. If they even come close to flirting, my dad, Coach the Boss Davis, makes them run laps around the field until they puke. Nothing scares off a boy more than the threat of physical pain. Not only has he forbidden me to date anyone at all, he's even made me the football team's water girl, so that he can keep tabs on me. Apparently, overprotective dad is a fabulous guy deterrent. Outdoor shops should find a way to bottle it and sell it. They'd make a killing. What dad doesn't know is that I spend every last second of those 2 blissful hours of practice in the scorching California heat staring at Tyson Blake. He is the epitome of perfection in a 6'2", incredibly toned, smells even good when he sweats senior body. And when he smiles, angels sing, literally. And dad hates him. It feels a bit cliche to say I fell for the one guy that would send dad's already high blood pressure over the top, but it's true. There's something about Tyson, something he's trying to hide, but I can see through his cocky persona, and I know there's something more. So in that, and it's done well for me. It hooks the reader, what's at stake. And now I've left it at the end where she's in love with Tyson Blake. She knows there's something more, but he is completely and utterly forbidden. This relationship is forbidden. It cannot happen. And so hopefully, okay, we know who's the love interest and we know the antagonist. And now I need to know how this story plays out. So that's just another example. That's why I love first person and I love YA, because I just love to talk in that person's, voice. And that's another place that you can really use. So if first person something you want to try and your book is in first person, try a first person one. I was reading an agent blog who talked about you would send in a query something or other. I can't remember. It's been so long, but you would send her a query and she would critique it. And a lot of times she's like, you don't do first person, but if you're going to do first person, knock it out of the park. Really do it first person. Like grab me into the story and I'm just going to want to keep reading. So if you're going to break rules, break them good. Okay, Michelle, why don't you go ahead and do what you were going to talk about?
So somebody was asking about whether or not you should use adjectives in front of your characters, like arrogant Lord John or innocent Lady Isabel, or that kind of where you put an adjective in front of your character's name. And a lot of people on our Facebook group are saying that they didn't care for it, but there are people in the business say it's absolutely essential. And I was kind of looking around, and I personally don't care for it at all. And I've never done it. And I have to say, I haven't seen it that often either. But then I was looking, and I did find some that are written that way. And so I was just wondering what your guys' perspective is on it. Is it, I don't know, is it just my own personal preference that I don't care for it? Or, you know what I'm saying?
I think it depends on the book. It depends on the voice. And it really depends on how well you do it. You know what I mean? It to me sounds something more like, I hate to say this, but a little cheesy kind of a story. So if your story is a little bit cheesy, then showcase it. There is a market for cheese out there.
I could almost imagine something like that being in front of that. Who wrote that book with the superhero grandparents or the superhero old lady? Like I could almost, if it's in front of like a more of a comic book, not a comic book, but a comedic book, I could totally see that as a way to kind of grab the voice into this like story where you're just like, oh my gosh, this is just going to be a hilarious book because of that. I could see that less, not so much in the seriousness. I think it's just because it would be kind of odd. The only time I've ever done it is put billionaire, whereas because I don't want to go into this long that he's the billionaire heir to blah blah blah. So I just say billionaire Blake blah 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 da 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 da, just so I establish that that's the billionaire in the story. That's the only time I used it, but I would never use it as a descriptor for a character because I think.
Yeah, I've just used it for like 16-year-old, or 17, because I do young adult, and so it's important for people to know their age up front. But yeah, I haven't used any other things like that except for billionaire. I did that.
The ones I said on were historicals, and I think maybe it's more common with historicals. Maybe I'd have to do a lot more research to say what's standard in any genre out there for it. But personally, I think that it's like show versus telling in your blurb, right? That there are ways, even in few words, to be able to show that somebody is a certain way without telling it. So telling it is a shortcut way, but it's not necessarily the best way. And I think a lot of times readers don't like being slammed in the face with something like that. So I would say try to write without doing that if you can. It might be an industry standard, maybe an older industry standard, maybe, and one that is evolving away. But I would say it's not necessarily best practice, if that makes sense. So that's my opinion on it, but I thought we'd address it a little bit with our limited knowledge. Because
and we can go back to saying if you're gonna do it awesome.
Yeah, and I would say pick good adjectives. If you're gonna do it, but it doesn't take that many more words to show the same kind of thing, I think. So anyway, there you go.
Awesome. So do we have any more questions we want to address, or do we have anyone on the YouTube channel?
There were a couple more on the Facebook post that I shared earlier today. So one of them is just kind of funny. Why are blurbs so evil? Why are they harder to write than the book itself? Yes, they are
not
evil.
Everything can be amazingly easy.
It has to be as hard as writing the book. I don't know.
Because you have to take your amazingly thought out story and you have to condense it down to 100 words and get people to buy it with that 100 words. And we're also not marketers, we're writers. So we want to get as flowy as we possibly can.
Well, and we're like, oh, but this cool thing happens and this cool thing happens. Oh, and this one, and like you can't jam it all in there. So I found something that actually helps me is to kind of write the blurb before I write the book, because then I don't know about all these extra little things that are going to happen. I just know about the most important stuff. So that has been helpful. But then I usually write it anyway. So.
And I was even going to say, if you want to push the thought that writing a blurb is hard, you might ask yourself why. And part of it might be because you don't understand your story well enough. And if you don't understand your story well enough, it's even possible that your story might have some problems. Because the formula for writing blurbs is pretty simple. If you plug in the right element, then you should be able to put one together pretty easily. Even if you have to tweak the exact wording of it, you should be able to pull all of the concepts together. So if you're having a hard time even struggling to figure out what needs to go in there, then you probably need to take a harder look at your story and understand it better.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I actually, with my first 2 books, I went to write the blurb and I realized that I needed to add more things into my story. So that is a really good point right there.
I also think it's a skill that over time you become better at. And so it was really difficult to write the blurb for my first book. I wrote it and rewrote it and rewrote it and rewrote it. But now I can write a blurb and just tweak it, you know. So I think it depends on how long you've been writing and how many books you've had to write a blurb for. It will get easier over time.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, I'm so sorry, guys, to keep yawning.
Okay, so there is another question. Someone, I didn't copy and paste the names, sorry. But someone awesome asked, how should blurbs on Amazon differ from the back of a paperback, like a jacket cover copy? I've noticed a few differences for KU ebook blurbs, especially in historical. And for me, I just keep mine the same because that's less work. So, yeah.
Ditto. I don't do double. That would just be too headache.
So the only difference that I can see why that might happen is if your blurb evolves over time, you might not change it on your paperback, and it might change on your Kindle product page. So that's a possibility why you're seeing that. Maybe somebody's just trying something new or improving something. It's also possible that there are length restrictions on their paperback that they have to edit for, and you'll see, like, if you're submitting to promotion sites or different things like that, a lot of times they'll have a word limit that they'll allow you to put for the book description. And so it's kind of good to have a couple different versions of your blurb in different lengths, so that if somebody says, give us a 50-word short blurb, or if somebody wants to put it in their newsletter, you have one ready to go instead of trying to scramble at the last minute. So, and another thing is that a lot of times you'll see on the blurb section on your product page where people will put a lot more information than just their book description. They'll put, information about what kind of book it is or what kind of content it has. They'll start adding, just from then just goes crazy. Like, people add all kinds of stuff in that section, even though they're probably not supposed to. I don't think they are supposed to add too much. You'll have information if it's part of an anthology or any kind of collection, and that wouldn't necessarily be included on a paperback either.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. Do we have any more, Judy? Or are we good?
Yeah, there is one more. So how do you put your tropes into your blurb in a way that's clever and not just plopping keyword phrases? For me, I don't know if I've really tried to be clever. I just say, but these best friends are going to kiss, or, she's going on a fake date with her brother's best friend. I don't really try to.
I think if you try to be too clever, you would just confuse people. People would be like, what's going on? Who's going out with who? What is going, you just want to be, I think you can get more clever in first person and how you're describing it, because you can set the tone without saying that they're enemies. I think for my rule number 2, you can't crush on your sworn enemy. It was basically like, I never talked to Cade Kelly and I won't ever help him, and he hurt my feelings. And so it was definitely an enemies to lovers trope. And so I didn't necessarily have to say he was my enemy. It was just basically like, I would never help him. And so the fact that the principal asked me to is horrible. And so you get that vibe that she just does not like this guy. But that's because you're telling it in first person. I think in third person, it would just be too much, I think, and too complicated.
Yeah, I've actually seen a study, and I wish, like Victorine, I wish I remembered where I saw it. But it was somebody who was reading book description, or not book descriptions, but descriptions of products, like ad copy. And from that, you would never know what product it was. Like, you would never know it was for a candy bar, that kind of thing, because it never mentioned the word like chocolate or, that kind of thing.
Someone failed at their job in that one.
And it's just it's just kind of funny because, and if you look at candy bars, let's just go with the whole chocolate thing. They tell you on the package what kind of candy bar it is. It has I can't say that word.
Nugget.
Nougat. There we go. Okay. Or it's got caramel, or it's got peanuts, or it's got, pretzel pieces, or it's white chocolate or dark chocolate. I mean, like, they put that right there on the package, right? And they're not trying to be all like funny and cute about it because you want to know what's in that package. You want to know what you're going to eat. And that's what the book description is for. That's what tropes are for. I mean, there are probably clever ways to say someone's a billionaire, but people want to know if it's a billionaire. It needs to be in there. That's what you're selling. And so, you know.
And you only have so many words to do it in, so you might as
Yeah.
well find the quickest one so you can talk about the other cool stuff.
Which is
Right.
almost like backwards of what we were saying about the adjectives earlier. It's kind of almost like backwards. That was my husband clapping, which he's supposed to be quiet right now, and he's not. But yeah.
Well, and I think there's
Cisco
times
is different.
when we're doing critiques and I read something and then I know Judy goes, yeah, I don't remember you talking about that, and I actually had to go back and reread. That is not something you want someone to ever say about your blurb. You don't ever want someone to say, oh, I had to reread your blurb a couple of times till I figured out what it meant. So I would be very careful. You have like 4 or 5 seconds to hook somebody. So you want it to be fast. You don't want it to be specific. And you want it to be intriguing. And I think trying to be too flowy or creative can actually hinder you instead of help you. Leave all of that stuff for your actual book inside of it where it's necessary. Don't try and do it in your ad copy, but don't also be too literal where you're like, in this story, 2 best friends fall in love but they're, like, you just don't do that, but find a good happy medium. So all right. Awesome, guys. Well, we went a little bit longer. Go ahead, Michelle.
I was just going to say, can we have a petition to change the word blurb to something else? It's the worst word ever. Ever,
Blurb.
I hate every single time I say it, I inwardly cringe.
It's like people who hate the word moist. Moist. It's a 4-letter word in the writing community, a blurb.
5 letters.
So what would you change it to? I don't know. If anyone can come up with a creative way, we will hashtag it Writing Gals. We'll hashtag it in the Writing Gals.
Yeah.
Like book description. I don't have any other cool words for it.
The BD will like.
You'll hear me say book description over blurb most of the time.
A book description. All right. Well, we will leave you with that very intelligent thought to chew on and ponder on as we leave you the evening. We try to keep it down to 30 minutes, but I really think blurbs need a longer. So next week, we're going to talk about different launch strategies. So we've seen this a lot in our feeds and the Writing Gals on Facebook. So we are going to chat about the ones that we've done, how they've succeeded or if they failed, and where we think we went wrong. We'll talk more about pre-orders and how they're doing for us, since everything is always changing. And the Writing Gals were always trying new things and doing good things and bad things sometimes. If you do join us on our Facebook group, make sure you answer the questions, because if you don't, we will decline you. So just answer the questions. They're just 3, but we'd love to have you there. We're a growing community, people answering questions, asking questions, and it's really, really fun. And please join us at the Midwest Conference in Kansas. It will be in a couple of weeks. So you won't even have to wait that long. That's what's awesome about it, because it's going to happen. And in 2 weeks, you're going to be there. So,
and registration is ending very soon. So you're running out of time.
Yes, but we 3 of us will be there, me, Victorine, and Michelle, teaching classes and meeting people and answering anything. We're going to maybe try and do like a Writing Gals meetup for dinner someplace. So stay tuned for that. I don't know if we actually get together enough. Neither of us are from Kansas. So it'll be like, let's just put McDonald's in our GPS and drive there. And Kansas City is like a huge, like crazy metropolis. So it is scary. What was there? Someone shot outside our hotel last time?
A block away.
It was pretty intense. So be careful.
No one's going to want to come because they're going to afraid they can die.
But no, we are worth it. That's what I'm saying. Seeing us is worth putting your life on the line.
Now you all know why I'm not really going to be there.
Judy is scared for her life.
The hotel was in a very secure location with a secure parking garage, and
yes, it will be safe. I was fine. I did not fear for my life. Just don't sleep on one side of the hotel. Just have them put you on your side and you'll be fine. It will be so fun. You won't even think about it. So I hate the city in general. Okay, so anyways, we are going to go say goodnight because we're all a little loopy now and because it's tired. So please join us, be our friends because we need more of them. And we will see you guys next week. And thanks for joining us and staying up late. We'll see you later.